A pleasant morning to everyone. Maayad ha, masalum inyualan. Welcome to the 12th Knowledge Sharing Forum of the Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines. This event is brought to us by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Bukidnon State University, and Polytechnic University of the Philippines. I am Joanna Ruth Sario Paloma, and with me is Dr. Chasur Leo Van Antalan. We are from the Language and Letters Department of Bukidnon State University, and we will be your hosts to this important event.
Thank you for that quick introduction, Joanna. Our forum today centers on the theme, Indigenous Peoples and Nation Building, Lessons in Leadership, Sustainability, and Peace. We are gathering the researchers, policymakers, and indigenous leaders to discuss sustainability, cultural heritage, and indigenous knowledge for resilient communities. We encourage everyone to invite your friends, students, and colleagues, of course your family members, to join us via Zoom and Facebook Live. Share your insights and reflections with us using the hashtag SERP-P Forum, hashtag PIDS Forum, hashtag Indigenous Peoples, and hashtag Nation Building. On-site participants may claim their certificate at the registration booth after submitting the feedback form. Zoom participants will receive their e-certificate by email after completing the survey to be shared later. For Facebook viewers, stay tuned for the pop quiz link at the end of the program to receive your certificate. To officially open today's program, may we all rise for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, the Invocation, and the Bukidnon Provincial Hymn, to be led by the Bukidnon State University Chorale.
Bayang magiliw, perlas na silanganan, anak ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinilang, duyanda ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisingit, sa dagat at puno, sa simulat, sa langit bababa, may dinagang pula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang bisrat ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdilig. Ang bituin at araw niya, kailan pa may maghihiling. Lupa ng araw ng buwan at ipagsinta, buhay ay namin sa piling mo. Ang ligaya na pagkay mag-aapi, ang namatay na dahil sa'yo. To be understood as to understand.
You may now be seated. Thank you so much to our talented BukSU Chorale for that wonderful performance. Now, to formally open today's program, it is our honor to invite the President of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Dr. Philip Arnold P. Tuanyo, to deliver the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Tuanyo. All right, once again, please help us welcome Dr. Tuanyo. A round of applause, please.
Maayong buntag sa tanan. Good morning, everyone. Maayong buntag sa tanan. On behalf of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, I warmly welcome all both our on-site and online participants to the 12 Knowledge Sharing Forum and Roundtable discussion of the Socioeconomic Research Portal of the Philippines, or SERP-P, the network of academic institutions and research organizations that is the national repository and dissemination platform for policy research in the country. Today's gathering is particularly meaningful because we are holding this forum not only in Metro Manila, but here in Malaybalay City, Bukidnon, together with our partners, Bukidnon State University and the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. This gathering reflects our shared commitment to bring policy conversations closer to communities and ensure that knowledge creation and dissemination are truly national in scope. Katuwang ng PIDS ang iba't ibang research institutions at mga akademya sa pagsulong ng evidence-based policymaking sa bansa. Through SERP-P, we have built a community of more than 70 partner institutions, researchers, scholars, educators, and advocates who believe that open access to knowledge is essential to good governance and inclusive development. Since its launch in 2000, SERP-P has served as the country's first open access repository of policy studies. Its mission is simple but powerful: to make research accessible not only to experts but also to policymakers, practitioners, and the public. In doing so, we ensure that evidence can inform decisions that affect lives of Filipinos. Indigenous peoples, we know, are an essential part of our nation. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, in 2020, nearly 9 million Filipinos identified as a member of Indigenous peoples community. They are also upland farmers, fisherfolk, weavers, artisans, and community leaders who have long protected their ancestral lands and passed down traditions that care for people and nature. But beyond these roles, they carry knowledge that has guided their communities for generations: how to make decisions together, care for the environment, resolve conflicts, and keep their communities strong. These are values that many of us are trying to discover today: sustainability, cooperation, and respect for both people and nature. Yet, despite these contributions, the indigenous peoples remain underrepresented in national development discussions and decision-making. So this is why research matters. Research helps document indigenous knowledge, understand indigenous realities, and ensure that these perspectives are reflected in policies and programs that shape development. This morning, we will hear from researchers who have closely worked with IP communities and documented their knowledge systems. Dr. Sunny Domingo of the PIDS will share his knowledge on National Integrated Protected Area System, examining how policies can better recognize indigenous rights within protected areas, an important issue as we balance environmental conservation with the rights of ancestral domain holders. From the Bukidnon State University, or BukSU, we will learn from Professor Dinalayan about Bukidnon-Tagoloanon Tribes Cooperative, how customary practices like communal ownership and consensus building have become the foundation of sustainability framework for social entrepreneurship. Her study offers a framework in which culture serves as a framework for sustainable and inclusive development. We will also hear a presentation from Dr. Judith Singcolan, the Kahusayan who Lidu, the peace ritual of Talaandig tribe, a living testament to how indigenous justice systems restore harmony and balance. In a world marked by conflict and division, their wisdom offers us path towards peace, rooted not in punishment but in dialogue and peace restoration. From the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Professor Werly Bieno will also bring us to Mindoro, where the Iraya Mangyan leaders continue to preserve their culture through festivals, songs, crafts, and games. Their story highlights both relevance and the importance of safeguarding cultural knowledge for future generations. Building on this, Professor Franco will show how the Iraya Mangyan teach us that caring for the environment is a moral duty, taking only what is needed, designing together as a community, and respecting the spirits that guide them. Their wisdom offers a model for building resilient communities, whether in the mountains or the city, grounded in responsibility and respect. And later this afternoon, we will convene a roundtable discussion that will bring together policymakers, indigenous leaders, and development partners. Our goal is simple yet ambitious: to translate evidence into actionable insights, identify policy gaps, and generate concrete recommendations that advance IP's rights and integrate indigenous knowledge systems into local and national development planning. Because nation building cannot be truly inclusive if we leave sectors anyone behind, so today we are not merely presenting studies. We hope that we are able to provide a broader perspective of the socio-cultural and socio-economic depth of our indigenous communities. Let us commit as researchers, as policymakers, as partners to ensure that this knowledge is not only documented, but respected, protected, and woven into the fabric of our nation's development. Kasama niyo ang PIDS at ang SERP-P network patuloy sa pagtataguyod ng bukas at inklusibong pananaliksik. Para sa Pilipinas, para sa bayan, magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tuanyo, for those inspiring and insightful remarks. Before the next speaker, allow me to greet first our over 400 Zoom attendees and 77 Facebook Live viewers. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Now to convey a message of support from our host institution, we now call on the President of Bukidnon State University, Dr. Joy M. Mirasol. Her message will be delivered on her behalf by the BukSU's Vice President for Research, Extension, and Innovations, Dr. Karina Joan V. Barroso. A round of applause, please.
Allow me to share with you the message of our university president for all of us today. Maayad haaldaw inyo alan. Good day, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished speakers and presenters. Dr. Philip Arnold P. Tuanyo, President of the Philippine Institute of Development Studies, sir. Engineer Manuel M. Muhi, President of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Dr. Sani N. Domingo, Senior Research Fellow of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, sir. Ms. Loretta Sol L. Dinlayan, Director of Bukidnon Studies Center. Dr. Judith C. Singkulan, Professor of Bukidnon State University. Dr. Werly P. Bueno, Assistant Professor of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Dr. Diosdado P. Frasco, Assistant Professor of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. We would also like to acknowledge Ms. Melinda T. Quinones, Department Manager 3 of the Research Information Department. To the organizers, partners from the Indigenous Peoples, participants from the academe, local and national government units, media practitioners, faculty and students, and those who are attending online and on-site, to our distinguished guests, welcome to Bukidnon State University. Today marks another meaningful activity as we gather for the 12th Knowledge Sharing Forum and Roundtable discussion, guided by the theme Indigenous Peoples and Nation Building, Lessons in Leadership, Sustainability, and Peace. This forum highlights the important contributions of Indigenous peoples in shaping governance, environmental stewardship, and peace building in our communities. Across generations, Indigenous communities have preserved systems of leadership, cultural wisdom, and sustainable practices that continue to guide societies toward harmony with people and nature. Their experiences remind us that nation building is not only about policies and programs, it is also about honoring heritage, strengthening communities, and nurturing peace. This gathering strengthens our collective commitment to research, inclusiveness, and collaboration through knowledge sharing and dialogue. We bridge academic research and lived experiences, strengthening our shared pursuit of sustainable and culturally responsive development. As we engage in today's discussions, may we continue to learn from one another and deepen our understanding of the insights and contributions of Indigenous communities. May this forum inspire meaningful conversations that will guide research, policy, and practice toward a more inclusive and peaceful future. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, our ability to reach unity in diversity will be in the beauty and the test of our civilization. Madakal salamat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mirasol, represented by Dr. Barroso, for that warm message of support. We now proceed to the presentation segment of our program. So today's session will feature a series of research studies that explore sustainability, indigenous knowledge systems, and cultural heritage from different perspectives. Our first presentation is titled Process Evaluation of the National Integrated Protected Area System and Expanded National Integrated Protected Area System. This study examines the implementation and effectiveness of the country's protected area policies and their implications for environmental governance and conservation. Presenting this study is Dr. Sonny N. Domingo from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. Let us all welcome Dr. Sonny N. Domingo. A round of applause, please.
All right. Well, first off, thank you to our MC and our host institution. Maraming salamat po for having us here today and probably for the next day or so. So the title of the presentation this morning from our end, please go back to the first slide, is Process Evaluation of the Critical Area Protection in the Philippines, particularly looking at the National Integrated Protected Area System, or NIPAS, and the Expanded National Integrated Protected Area System, E-NIPAS, passed in 1992 and 2018 respectively. So, next slide, please. In doing so, we touched the provisions under IPRA, as well as the concerns of our local IP communities. So the presentation goes as follows. A bit of background and context of this presentation, an overview of the augmented provisions of the E-NIPAS of 2018, the objectives and policy questions we tried to answer via this study, the framework, and of course the outputs and indicative outcomes of the E-NIPAS Act and its implementation, case study sites just to have our insights well grounded, and key remaining concerns and issues, and finally, recommendations for strengthening integrated protected area management in the Philippines. Next slide, please. Okay, so a bit of a background. Only 24% of the Philippines' land area remains forested. Key issues we've seen are as follows: logging, poaching, kayingin, conversion of our forest lands into plantations, agroforestry, and fish ponds as examples, grazing, economic activities like mining, mineral extraction, and of course, infrastructure development like our construction of roads and dams for agriculture, natural disaster events including typhoons, floods, and landslides. So of the 6.8 million hectares of the remaining forest cover, around 2.7 million hectares or 39% are protected areas. Next slide, please. So probably if you're going back to that slide and the graph to your right, you'll see that from 2010, we had a drastic decrease in terms of forest cover, but we've been recovering since 2010 via that increasing trend. Next slide, please. The protected area designation addresses the key issues we've mentioned earlier and sustains biodiversity. We are guided by the E-NIPAS Act of 1992, as well as the augmented provisions of E-NIPAS in 2018. So protected area is defined as land and water with unique physical and biological significance that are managed to enhance biological diversity and protect against destructive human exploitation. So for the longest time, we have had very limited legislated protected areas. But with E-NIPAS, we immediately had almost, well, more than 100 legislated protected areas. So that's a very big accomplishment in terms of our legislatures and our stakeholders who helped in crafting provisions of that E-NIPAS. So many protected areas in the country overlap with ancestral domains of our indigenous peoples who have long practiced traditional forest management and stewardship. Later on, we'll be talking about traditional ways of agroforestry, including UMA, and the more modern version of kaingin. So as they impact our forest management, well, particularly the management of our critical protected areas. Certificate of Ancestral Domain Titles, or CATIs, overlap with 1.44 million hectares of protected areas and 1.35 million hectares of key biodiversity areas. So for those of you who had that question earlier about the relevance of our presentation to the welfare of our IPs, this is probably one of the main answers to that. So as of 2023, 257 ancestral domains were approved, CATIs, but only 22% of these were fully registered. So that's another entry point for intervention and augmentation coming from our bureaucracy. Next slide, please. Overview of the augmented provisions coming from NIPAS to E-NIPAS, 1992 to 2018, provision-wise. So, as mentioned earlier, in terms of establishment and coverage, we had automatically 94 new PAs, or protected areas, legislated via E-NIPAS. And we'll show as well later on the total numbers that we have right now in terms of legislated and those waiting to be legislated. In terms of zoning, we have simplified a very complex or varied zoning arrangement before to just strict protection and multiple use zones. Management and administration, we created the DNR Biodiversity Management Bureau at the national level, and we have augmented our PAMBs, or Protected Area Management Boards, in our localities. Of course, staffed by our PAMO, or management offices, with permanent staff in some of them, in many, just designations. So DNR retains oversight over areas managed by other agencies as well. So in all equations, the bureaucracy is there in terms of managing our protected landscapes. We have as well increased penalties for violators of certain provisions of our legislation. So up to 5 million, as well as possible imprisonment of 1 to 12 years. So medyo upgraded yung ating supposed penalties, no, for those violating the provisions of NIPAS, E-NIPAS. In terms of the Protected Area Management Board, we have expanded its membership, including local and national politicians, IP and ICC reps, private sector representatives, academic institutions. So we have, I think in some areas, more than 80 members of PAMBI. That's good in terms of inclusivity, but also, well, it's also a concern in terms of us being more efficient, no, in coordinating with members of the PAMBI, and of course in terms of managing those meetings. In terms of ancestral domains and rights, of course we have under this legislation the recognition of CATIs and CAUTIs, uses community conservation plans, requires FPIC for developments in ancestral domains, and coordination committees for shared areas. So very consistent with the provisions of IPRA. In doing this work, we tried to answer the following policy questions. So what is the status of the grounding of the E-NIPAS Act of 2018, and of course the 1992 provisions of NIPAS? Have there been significant changes in the PAPs and resources related to the protection and management of protected areas in the country? And what policy and institutional enhancements are necessary to facilitate the grounding of E-NIPAS and bolster the protection of critical areas? So in doing so, we documented functional policy and institutional changes. We identified policy weaknesses and implementation gaps. And in the end, we tried to propose actionable recommendations just to have the management of our critical protected areas better. Next slide, please. So our main research design was a process evaluation, looking at inputs, activities, in terms of implementing the legislation, and outputs, short of having a full-blown impact assessment. So hanggang outputs lang tayo. But in our case, we also tried to touch on a few of the intermediate outcomes, indicative intermediate outcomes. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are a few of those. It's quite difficult to cover everything because probably the subject matter requires multiple days of intensive discourses, but we are going to fit everything into a 20-minute presentation. So in terms of governance reforms, as mentioned earlier, PAMBI right now is, well, more inclusive with more members. So that has so many implications, positive and negative implications. The NR maintains leadership, of course, and we have our CSOs and IP representations also present within those boards. Supposed enhancement in terms of technical and political support is there, so possibly resulting to better decision making. In terms of institutionalization of Protected Air Management Office, we have it also in our localities. Although some are just designated, some of our superintendents are just designated and not permanent appointees. Amended law provided for more staff, increased funding control, and stronger reporting and monitoring. Next slide, please. In terms of legal and tenurial changes, expansion of legal coverage, automatic inclusion of course, the 94 PAs, and the added protected areas also after the passing of E-NIPAS. Streamlines future PA establishments, still led by DNR and stakeholders. As we know, the process within Congress is quite tedious, and that's why the initial inclusion of the 94 under E-NIPAS was a very big deal. After E-NIPAS, all the other succeeding PA declarations had to go through our tedious processes within Congress. So medyo matrabaho and medyo mahaba yung proseso natin. In terms of tenurial instruments, there is the recognition, of course, of our ancestral domains, awarded CATIs under IPRA, community-based, tenure institutionalized via the PACBARMA, or the Protected Area Community-Based Resource Management Agreement, and also regulations via our special users permit, or SAPA. Next slide, please. A big deal as well is the augmented resources with the passing of this amended or augmented legislation. So you have on your screen comparison between what we had during the NIPAS years as well as the post-E-NIPAS passing years, 2018 to what we have right now. Next slide, please. So we have as well the Integrated Protected Area Fund, or IPAF. So this is, I think, one of the essential ingredients in terms of us better managing our protected areas. We need resources to keep everything going, to sustain our efforts, to protect these critical landscapes, as well as also to fund the operational requirements of managing our protected areas. But as you can see as well in this graph, we need to do more in terms of better utilizing such resources. So there are issues. So we have the fund in certain areas. Some areas we have delayed establishment of IPAF. And in some areas, although we have IPAF, they haven't been tapping that resource. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to better ground our discussion and of course, our insights, we covered 3 major case study sites: the Masui Geo Reserve in Rizal Province, the Mount Matalingan Protected Area Landscape in Palawan, the Northern Negros Natural Park in Negros Occidental. And just to complete the scenario in terms of our managing the critical landscapes within the Philippines, we also covered other protected landscapes. The Upper Marikina River Basin Protected Landscape, the Mounts Manahaw, San Cristobal Protected Landscape, the Maulawin Spring Protected Landscape, and the Buena Vista Protected Landscape. So these are located in Rizal, Laguna, and Quezon. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have less than 5 minutes remaining, but I'll go through very quickly through these very important remaining slides. So for Mount Matalingahan, these are a few of the details and insights that we've gathered. So this is one of the 8 protected areas in Palawan. It's one of the protected landscapes that we failed to include in passing E-NIPAS. So it's proclaimed, but not legislated. Next slide, please. So we've seen a lot of changes in terms of institutional management, in terms of socioeconomic community impacts, in terms of financial sustainability, as well as ecological and conservation outcomes. So a lot of them are positive, but we've also seen critical entry points for betterment or intervention. Next slide, please. So in looking at the case study sites, we've been trying to come up with applicable models in terms of protecting our critical areas. And in this case, you have a model of a protected area that has been proclaimed but not legislated. Next slide, please. So the occupants comprise 15% of the total IP populations in the municipalities covered. They have been practicing the traditional kaingin, or in that case, uma. Of course, hunting and gathering are part of their livelihood and sustained daily activities. Possess extensive traditional ecological knowledge about local biodiversity and forest management, which is consistent, I think, with all of our IP and ICCs. Indigenous communities participate in community monitoring forest protected. And some serve as informants or conservation partners. So very important role for our IP communities, and this is consistent in all the areas we've looked at. Next slide, please. So you can see here details in terms of protected area management and key issues affecting our indigenous peoples and their communities. So some of those are in terms of balancing traditional land use and conservation rules. Limited representation in PAMBI, pressures from mining, land conversion and infra development, socioeconomic constraints and limited livelihood alternatives, and native title versus traditional rights, and of course awarded CATTs. So in the case of Mount Matalingahan, there are areas waiting to be awarded as CATTs, and so they have been depending on supposed native titles. And that is, of course, of lesser force legal-wise. That's why we need to move forward and legislate via E-NIPAS. Well, of course, in terms of the provisions of IPRA. award the CATI. Next slide, please. So that was Mount Matalingan. We now have the Northern Negros Natural Park. And I have no more time left, but I'll go through very quickly through the remaining slides. So, the Northern Negros Natural Park is a very good example of a legislated protected area that has been hosting, I think, a very diverse set of economic activities. And they have been quite successful in managing the same, as well as increasing the amount in their IPAF. But as you can see in the next slides, there are also entry points for augmentation and betterment. Next slide, please. So you can see in this slide, institutional management changes, socioeconomic community impacts, financial sustainability concerns, and ecological and conservation outcomes. The gist probably is us going forward and having better guidelines for our actors on the ground. So when we were going around and when we were talking to all the stakeholders, we've seen that we can do better in terms of being more definite in grounding policy and provisions of E-NIPAS. And of course, IPRA. Next slide, please. So limited technical and scientific representation within the PAMB, frequent turnover of PAMB members, capacity constraints, ongoing encroachment and land conversion, unauthorized structures inside the protected area, slow legal processes, minor illegal logging due to livelihood needs, and key issues affecting IPs, CATI claims within the NNP, overlapping conflicting land claims, and representation issues. So the same set of concerns are present in other protected landscapes that we have been managing. Next slide, please. The last among the three major case study sites is the Masungi Geo Reserve. If you've been reading the news during the past couple of years or so, probably you're quite aware of the concerns with Masungi Geo Reserve. So this is a multi-awarded arrangement in terms of us managing our protected area. But there have been concerns in terms of the entity managing it and its relationship with the national government as well as the community surrounding it, including the IP surrounding the Geo Reserve. Next slide, please. So it has, I think, an encompassing coverage, as you can see in the map on your screen. Next slide, please. So multiple LGUs trying to also impose their supposed concerns, in terms of managing the protected landscape. So legal basis for NGFI stewardship has been questioned, and the NR has been trying to get back that area during the past few years or so. Covers 1 city, 2 municipalities, 5 barangays, ecotourism as a primary source of revenue, and the restoration, protection, and reforestation of native tree species, strengthening of biodiversity, and of course, global recognition of what they have been doing there are positive accomplishments of that arrangement. So this is a model, I think, of a protected area being managed by an entity outside government. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, key issues affecting IPs include restricted access to ancestral domains, reported incidents of property destruction and detentions, lack of documented FPIC and complete IPRA processes. So again, we can do more in terms of having better arrangements. Although this arrangement with an entity outside government has been well recognized, both nationally and internationally. Next slide, please. So for all the other areas we've covered, you can see here some of the issues identified. So they cover staffing constraints, growing settlements, land selling, and infra expansion within protected areas, PAMB capacity gaps, political influence in decision-making, encroachment within our critical areas, soil erosion, ecological integrity concerns, slow approval of IPAF processes, low zonal values, reducing SAPA fees, low PAMBI attendance, and restrictive rules on alternates. Next slide, please. So strong community involvement in smaller protected areas, that's actually manifested in some of those protected landscapes being managed in small portions, in small sizes or parcels. Use of technology such as camera traps, drones, etc. Are being also implemented in those areas. Protected areas covering 2 provinces required strong coordination. Smaller protected areas may be significantly easier to manage, as we have seen. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. So key remaining concerns, very quickly: governance gaps across PAMBI structures, persistent capacity constraints, effects of incomplete or delayed legislation, intensifying threats and pressures within our protected areas, overlapping claims and policy ambiguities, ecotourism and community engagements in our protected landscapes, and of course, the enhancement of enforcement and legal follow-through. So I think that's very important. We have provisions within legislations, but in the end, it's all about us enforcing and us, making them accountable in terms of all those breaches of those provisions. Next slide, please. So I think this is the second to the last slide. Recommendations for strengthening integrated protected area management. Go back to the previous slide. Just very quickly, in terms of strengthening PAMBI governance and decision making, enhance PAMO staffing, competencies, and field capability, accelerate legislation and policy clarifications, strengthen partnerships and co-management models. Next slide, please. Improving threat prevention and landscape level management, strengthening planning, characterization and database management, improve financial access to IFAP and other resource sources, reviewing prior rights and existing tenurial instruments, strengthening the NRBMB enforcement capacity, enhancing the redesign of SAPA or our special use agreements, and in the end, enhancing complementation between IPRA and E-NIPAS in terms of protection and stewardship of critical areas, harmonization of development plans, inclusive platform for IP representation, and participation in PA management. So we've seen both positive and not so positive implications of us grounding E-NIPAS. In the end, we need 2 more in terms of being more efficient and effective in managing these critical landscapes. And of course, considering the welfare of our local communities, particularly our IP and ICCs. So I think this is the last slide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Domingo, for the valuable insights on environmental governance and protected area management. A round of applause, please. Dr. Domingo, we have points noted here. There is an urgent need to enhance PAMU staffing by providing permanent plantilla position and increasing field capability, including vehicles and logistical support for patrolling. And of course, the government must accelerate the legislation of proclaimed protected areas to avoid institutional and financial disadvantages. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Domingo. For our on-site participants, we would like to request you to please kindly mute your cell phones or keep them in vibrate mode so everybody can focus on our session uninterrupted. Thank you very much. Before we proceed to the next presenter, we would like to acknowledge our partner on-site. We have from the Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology, and also from the Development Academy of the Philippines, Mindanao, we have Dr. Mark Limuel Garcia. Watching us also via Zoom are DILG Region 10 Director Bruce A. Colau and DSWD Peace and Development Buong Bansa Mapayapa Program or Program Director, Miramel Garcia Laksa. Thank you very much for joining us in this important discussion. We are thrilled to have over 500 Zoom participants today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you can stay until the end of our program. Our next presentation highlights the role of Indigenous peoples in shaping sustainable economic initiatives. The study is titled A Sustainability Framework for Social Entrepreneurship Through an Indigenous Peoples Cooperative, the Case of Bukidnon-Tagoloanon Tribe. This will be presented by Professor Loretta Sol L. Dinlayan of Bukidnon State University. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Professor Dinlayan.
Good morning, everyone. Maayada masalam inyo alan. And my special greetings for the participants of this forum, the on-site and online. I also want to give my acknowledgement to our brethren from the indigenous communities who are here today. And to the rest of the group, again, maayong buntag sa inyong tanan. I will share to you this is a study, a social entrepreneurship sustainability framework with Indigenous Peoples Cooperative. This is the case of the Bukidnon-Tagoloanon tribe. We presented this study to the provincial governor, Governor Roque, last month. And then briefly, we presented to him, and he sent us to the Committee on Cooperatives. And now the paper and the memorandum of agreement is in the legal officer to be reviewed, and later on it would be sent to the Sangguniang Panlalawigan of the province of Bukidnon for research utilization. Recently, the province of Bukidnon conducted the Anti-Poverty Summit. And one of the findings that they have is the presence of the indigenous people's population in municipalities. So I think that would give meaning to my presentation this morning. For those who are interested, this is published in Canadian Journal of Nonprofit and Social Economy Research. And with me, Dr. Annie Imata and Dr. Helen Garcia, my colleagues here at BukSU. Next slide, please. So the entire or the general statement on social entrepreneurship, this is integral to sustainable development. And it is also considered as an innovation for social development. It is a group effort. So this is the general idea that guided to us as we go through the study. And the Philippine government support it among the indigenous communities through cooperatives. Next slide, please. The next slide. Using the case of Bukidnon-Tagoloanon indigenous community in Bukidnon, this study developed a framework for cooperatives among indigenous communities. I hope that this afternoon, the general manager of the BukTamako will be coming. That's Attorney Bert Estrada. He is Dato Manhanayan. But one of the members of the council is here, Dato Balinao. Dato Balinao to be recognized, one of the council members of the BukTamako. Next slide, please. Bukidnon or BukTamako, that is the cooperative, was established in 2017. It is within an ancestral domain with CADT number R10-MLY-115-193 with more than 900 hectares. So if we will imagine the ancestral domain with 900 hectares, that is difficult to think on how to manage not only the people, because the ancestral domain contains, according to, they are grouped according to families, clans, and we call that a sagao. So managing the group of people, managing the natural resources. Next slide, please. The cooperative aims to develop an ancestral domain through sustainable programs that uplift the Bukidnon-Tagoloanon indigenous communities' economic condition without disrupting the people's ways and traditions to enable them to continue living as an indigenous community. So this is a shared value. And we also get this statement from Attorney Bagani, who is here. Attorney Bagani, to be recognized, our former IPMR in the province of Bukidnon. And one of the interviews from him, we got this statement that we want to develop the ancestral domain without disrupting the people's ways and traditions so that we can continue to live as indigenous community. Next slide. So this is the ancestral domain, just to give you a glimpse. It covers 3 barangays, Barangay 1, Barangay Sumpong, and Barangay Canayan. It's quite near from BukSU campus. Next slide, please. So these are the social entrepreneurship practices that the community is doing within the ancestral domain. On that side, we have indigenous leadership, observance of community values, communal property and profit sharing, concern for the community, and entrepreneurial competencies. On this side is the indigenous knowledge, the concept according to the perspective of the indigenous communities. Like the indigenous leadership that is in Inay, the root word is Inay. The Inay is responsible to take care of the whole household and to manage the activity of the household. That's indigenous leadership. And we have the Bungkatul Habulawan. This is the value system of the Bukidnon indigenous communities, shared by all tribes in Bukidnon. That's Bungkatul Habulawan, observance of community values. If you want to get the details of this value system, then you can access the study. You have the details of the different values. Handuga daw kalalagan, that is our communal property and profit sharing. And then we have the concern for the community, sayuda. Sayuda means everybody wants to know what is going on the other side of the fence. And for the BukSU, together with the Bukidnon-Tagoloanon tribe, we came up with a memorandum of understanding, a partnership between BukSU and the tribe to come up with a radio program, Kaglambaga. BukSU has a radio station, DXBU 104.5, and we had a weekly program, 1-hour program, where we disseminate the issues and the activities in the community. So it is a tandem between BukSU and the indigenous community. The radio host, yours truly, and my partner is Dato Balinao. Again, Dato Balinao, muna siya ang host sa radio program, and we disseminate the activities of the cooperative. Because that's the value, it's sayuda. For the competencies, katatao daw, kaayaran. Next slide, please. These are the challenges of the cooperative, conflicts within the domain. The conflict is not necessarily relational. The conflict is the overlapping of land area, not necessarily relational. Limited technical skills and financial literacy, since the natural resources are there and some fundings are coming from the government and other funding agency, of course, we need to have our technical skills and financial literacy. That's one challenge of the cooperative. But the third one, and we put emphasis to that, existing regulatory requirements which are not inclusive to customary practices. For next slide. This specifies the RA 9520. This specifies the formation, registration, management, and mandatory requirements of cooperatives in the Philippines. And we are mandated to follow that. All cooperatives are mandated to follow that, including the powers and functions of the General Assembly, Board of Directors, and other officers of the cooperatives. This is the challenge of Buktamako. Harmonizing the customary practice and the compliance with the law or with the policy. RA 9520. Next slide. The principles of the cooperatives are already practiced by the indigenous communities because we are mandated, but some principles are applied differently due to customary practices, including the role of Council of Elders in decision-making. Such customary practice is not embedded in RA 9520 that imposes management models that don't fully recognize or integrate traditional governance structures. So this is a matter of imposing the, the practices or the cultural or the customary ways of the indigenous peoples. Next slide, please. So here is the difference in the organizational structure between a typical cooperative and the cooperatives followed by Buktamako. That's a typical structure. We have the General Assembly, BOD, Board of Directors, officers, and committees. In Buktamako, this is the scenario. You have the Council of Elders, that is an additional entity in the organizational structure. You have still the General Assembly, Board of Directors, officers, and committees, but there is a special participation of the Council of Elders. So this is a proposed organizational structure, just a proposal, and that's part of the presentation that we gave to the provincial governor of Bukidnon. Next slide, please. So with the 4 pillars of sustainability, the common pillars, the human, economic, social, and environmental, we are introducing the 5th pillar, and that is the customary practices introduced by the researchers. Next slide, and this is the picture. So you have there the 4 pillars, environmental, social, economic, and human, and we added this base or the foundation that is a customary practice. It is a product of the interaction between the indigenous value system and you have the Council of Elders. And then still we have the other elements of following or managing a cooperative, academe, we have our government, of course, and then we have the internal governance. So this figure presents a sustainability framework for an IP cooperative, modeled after the experience and practices of Buktamako. Buktamako has many success stories. They have their website, and if you want to know what's going on in the cooperative, then you will find out. And we are blessed to have this cooperative in the province of Bukidnon. To assist the indigenous cultural communities, cooperative sustain its operation, concerned agencies, that's why we are here today, may revisit RA 9520 and integrate the indigenous customary practices in its implementation. We understand the process, we understand the cost, but we also understand the value of customary practices. So you have the general manager, I hope he will come this afternoon, Attorney Bert Estrada, and one of the episodes of the radio program at BukSU, he shared about the Bamboo Value Chain Development Project in Bukidnon, part of the project of the Buktamako, and then some of the achievements that they have. And for the rest of the people who are here, both online and on-site, this is our assurance to you. To ensure the integrity of the IP communities where research are conducted, and to ensure the sincerity of BukSU researchers, we will remain faithful to the cultural protocol like FPIC and rituals in conducting research among indigenous cultural communities. The NCIP Commissioner for Northern and Western Mindanao is here, Attorney Bert. Where is Attorney? Attorney to be recognized, the NCIP Commissioner. We have here Attorney Albert, and maybe he would have a response to this call. And I think that's all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Dinlayan, for sharing this meaningful work on indigenous entrepreneurship and sustainability. Your presentation highlighted how the Bukidnon-Tagoloanon tribe strengthens community development while preserving culture and ancestral values. So, yes, it reminds us that sustainability is best achieved when economic initiatives are rooted in indigenous knowledge and collective empowerment. All right, everyone, before we move on, we have a quick and exciting game. Can you please raise your phones, including our Zoom audience out there? Raise your phones and check your Facebook accounts. Why? Because the first 5 on-site participants who can show that they are following the PIDS and SERP-P on Facebook pages will receive a special gift. So, please approach the tech team. And we have here Sir Zeki to claim your prize. So, kindly look at your Facebook kung wala pa naka-follow. If you haven't followed yet, kindly follow PIDS and SERP-P. All right. Here is Sir Zeki here. So, we will do that later on, okay? All right. So, the first 5. All right, kindly show your phones to Sir Zeki if you followed SERP-P and PIDS. All right, congratulations. We have Ma'am Kathy, Ma'am Liza. We have one guest over there who already claimed their prize. Show your cell phones. Sir Zeki, those at the back would also like to win. All right. Yay! Ma'am Lulu got one. And of course, Menard got one. So congratulations. Can we all give them a round of applause, please? All right. Thank you so much. Moving on, our third presentation explores cultural traditions that promote peace and community cohesion. So the study is titled Kahusayan ho Lidu, the peace ritual of the Talaandig tribe in Lantapan, Bukidnon, Mindanao, Philippines. Presenting this research is Dr. Judith C. Singkulan from Bukidnon State University. Let us all welcome Dr. Singkulan.
Maayad masulum inyo alan, maayong buntag sa tanan. So, this morning, before I present to you the result of my study, I would like to give you a trivia. So, for sure, this picture is familiar, no? Especially for those who are coming from Bukidnon. But I would like to ask this, especially for those who are coming from outside Bukidnon. If you have seen this picture, what comes to your mind? Are you familiar with the picture? I'm sorry. Not clear. Okay, so the picture, next slide. Okay, so this is the landmark of the place where the study is conducted. So this is the newest monument landmark in Bukidnon, specifically from Lantapan. So this is a tribute to the hardworking vegetable farmers, the first Talaandig tribe, and to the locals of the municipality of Lantapan, because Lantapan is considered as the food basket of Mindanao. So this monument was inspired into a reality by Kublai Milan. Next. So this is a famous for his giant sculptures. So among his wonderful creations, in Bukidnon are the Overview Nature and the Culture Park in Quezon and the Giant Panika in Impasugong, Bukidnon. Next slide. Okay, so this is my study conducted a few years ago. So this is entitled Kahusayan ho Lidu, the Peace Ritual of the Talaandig Tribe in Lantapan, Bukidnon. So the development of the cultural legacy of the Talaandig tribe rests mainly in awareness and respect for their unique way of life in Bukidnon. So their habits, behavior, speech, attire, lifestyle, and faith demonstrate it. At the brink of their territory, a well-known monument bearing, "Welcome, you are now in the heart of the Talaandig ancestral territory. Be culture conscious." So this is the landmark of the Talaandig community wherein before you go to their community, you can see the landmark. Next slide. Okay, indigenous rituals play a crucial role in sustaining the cultural identity, spiritual beliefs, and social harmony of indigenous communities. In many indigenous societies, rituals functions not only as spiritual practices, but also as a mechanism for maintaining peace, reinforcing communal relationships, and transmitting cultural knowledge across generations. So among the Talaandig tribe of Lantapan, Bukidnon, traditional rituals remain an integral part of their cultural life and worldview. One of these significant practices is the Kahusayan Lidu, a ritual performed to uphold peace and harmony within the community and to strengthen their spiritual connection with Magbabaya, the Supreme Being. Next slide. So the rituals of the Talaandig tribe occupy a unique and significant position within their culture. They perform this ritual when seeking a favor, asking for guidance, or expressing gratitude to the spirits they believe. In particular, the spirit called Mulen Olen. That's according to Saway. Okay, next slide. So we have here the example of the rituals where the Talaandig tribe perform the panalabugta. So that's the ritual to give respect and offerings as asking for permissions and blessing from Apo Talabugta. The next one is the Ibabasok, a spirit guardian of soil, and Apo Ibabasok, the spirit guardians of plants, before establishing and tilling the farm. Then the Panalawahig, a sacred thanksgiving and cleansing ceremony performed by the Talaandig tribe of Bukidnon to honor the spirit guardian of the water, the Apo Pamulalakaw. So according to Vic Saway, 2014, leader of the Talaandig tribe, life is a ritual. From birth to death, various kinds of rituals are performed. So it implies that performing rituals is an integral part of the Talaandig tribe's life, as they believe Magbabaya will guide and help them succeed in all their endeavors and tasks. So their close connection to the source of the life, the rituals, and their communication with the pure spirit, the Diwang Dalisay, and the malevolent spirit, the Diwang Busaw, currently translated as white spirit and the black spirit. So that's according to Saway. So despite its cultural importance, scholarly documentation of this ritual remains limited. So that's why I conducted this study. So this study seeks to examine the history, processes, and the cultural significance of the Kahusayan Lidu ritual in order to contribute to the preservation and deeper understanding of the cultural heritage, specifically for the Talaandig tribe. So this is the objectives of the study. The primary aim is to give meaning to the ritual terminologies, present and analyze the Kahusayan Lidu ritual of the Talaandig tribe in Lantapan, Bukidnon. Next slide. So these are the theoretical and conceptual framework. This study is anchored on the theories of functionalism, cultural relativism, and Worf's hypothesis. So the concept, the ritual terminologies serve as a source of vital information and a mark of identity forms the conceptual framework of this study. So for the methodology, the research employed an indigenous and descriptive approach. So descriptive method was used to analyze, present, and discuss the collected data. And the indigenous method was used to collect data through interviews or structured verbal interactions with the members of the Talaandig community. So for the results and discussion, so these are the ritual terms collected, wherein for the terms, we have the beliefs and the customs. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next slides. Okay, so for the results, I have highlights the following key terms. So for number 1, Kahusayan Lidu as a peace ritual. Next. Okay, the role of the Balaghusay, the ritual terms, process, and the symbolism, reflection of beliefs and cultural identity, and cultural preservation and continuity. Next slide, please. So for the Kahusayan who Lidu as a ritual for peace and community harmony, the findings reveal that the Kahusayan who Lidu is primarily performed as a ritual intended to maintain and restore peace within the Talaandig community. Informants emphasized that the ritual is conducted whenever there are disturbances, misunderstandings, or potential conflicts among the members of the tribe. So through the ritual, the community collectively seeks guidance and blessings from Magbabaya, whom they recognize as the Supreme Being. Okay, so the ritual serves not only as a spiritual act, but also as a social mechanism for conflict resolution and reconciliation. Next slide. Okay, for the second the role of the Balaghusay in the ritual. So one of the ritual terms gathered during the conduct of the ritual is the Balaghusay. So the study also found that the Balaghusay plays a central role in the performance of the Kahusayan Hulido ritual. So the Balaghusay is recognized as the spiritual leader and ritual specialist who possesses the authority and knowledge to conduct the ceremony. So according to the informants, only the Balaghusay is capable of properly performing the ritual because he has inherited the cultural knowledge and spiritual responsibility associated with the practice. Next slide, please. This highlights the importance of traditional leadership and cultural knowledge holders in preserving indigenous practices and maintaining the spiritual integrity of the ritual. So the second result, ritual terms, processes, and symbolic practices. So the study revealed that the Kahusayan Hulid ritual used cultural terms, follows a structured processes that involve several ceremonial practices, including prayers, symbolic offerings, and communal participation. So each stage of the ritual reflects the tribe's belief system and their reverence for spiritual forces. So the use of traditional language, the ritual terms, chants, and the symbolic actions during the ritual reinforces the cultural identity of the Talaandig tribe. So the ritual processes serves as a cultural expression of the tribe's worldview, emphasizing the importance of spiritual guidance in maintaining peace and harmony in the community. So for the fourth theme, reflection of the Talaandig beliefs, values, and cultural identity. So another significant findings of the study is that the Kahusayan Lidu ritual reflects the beliefs, customs, and cultural identity of the Talaandig people. The ritual contains unique terminologies, those listed in the previous slides, and ceremonial practices that are distinct to the tribe. So through the ritual, the Talaandig community expresses their reverence for Magbabaya, their respect for ancestral traditions, and their commitment to preserving their cultural heritage. So these findings support the view that indigenous rituals function as important cultural institutions that transmit knowledge, values, and traditions across generations. So for the fifth identified theme, cultural preservation and continuity of the ritual. So despite social and cultural changes, the study revealed that the Talaandig tribe continues to practice the Kahusayan Hulido ritual as part of their efforts to preserve their cultural traditions. So elders and cultural leaders actively encouraged the younger members of the community to understand and respect the ritual. So the continued performance of Kahusayan Hulido demonstrate the tribe's commitment to maintaining the cultural heritage and indigenous knowledge systems. Next slide. Okay. So, based on the study results, the following conclusions are drawn. So, ritual plays a vital role in maintaining peace and harmony within the community. So, it serves as both spiritual and social practice that reinforces unity, reconciliation, and collective identity among members of the tribe. Next slide. The study also highlighted the central role of the Balaghusay, who acts as the ritual leader and custodian of cultural knowledge. As the only individual authorized to perform the ritual, the Balaghusay ensures that traditional practices and procedures are preserved and transmitted according to the customs of the Talaandig people. So furthermore, the Kahusayan Lidu ritual reflects the beliefs, customs, and worldview of Talaandig tribe, particularly their reverence for Magbabaya, the supreme being. So the ritual embodies the tribe's cultural values and spiritual traditions, serving as an important expression of their identity and heritage. Next slide. Okay, so for the implication of the study, we have here the study contributes to documentation and preservation of indigenous cultural practices, particularly those of the Talaandig tribe. So through recording the history, process and significance of the Kahusayan Lidu ritual, the study helps safeguard valuable cultural knowledge that might otherwise be lost over time. Second, the research provides meaningful insights for scholars in the fields of anthropology, indigenous studies, and Philippine cultural studies. So it expands the understanding of how indigenous rituals functions as mechanism for maintaining peace, social order, and spiritual connection within traditional communities. So finally, the study highlights the importance of recognizing and respecting indigenous knowledge systems and cultural traditions. So it encourages greater awareness and appreciation of the cultural practices of indigenous peoples, particularly among educators, researchers, and policymakers. So I am very glad that majority of my recommendations are already implemented, especially here in Bukidnon State University. So I have here listed recommendations, no? Okay, so for number one, further study, so maybe future researchers are encouraged to conduct additional studies on other rituals and cultural practices of the Talaandig tribe in order to provide a broader understanding of their indigenous knowledge systems and traditions. For cultural documentation and preservation, so government agencies, cultural institutions, and researchers should support initiatives that document and preserve indigenous rituals, oral traditions, and cultural practices to ensure their continuity for future generations. For educational integration, so educational institutions may integrate indigenous cultural knowledge. So we have here in Bukidnon State University, Bukidnon Cultural Studies, and IS 102, Wika Kultura sa Mapayapang Lipunan, wherein we have already integrated indigenous culture. Next slide. So for community collaboration, so maybe researchers should work closely with indigenous communities and cultural leaders in conducting cultural studies to ensure that documentation and dissemination of knowledge are carried out with respect, ethical consideration, and community participation. Okay. We have also here strengthening cultural documentation. So local cultural institutions, researchers, and government agencies should intensify efforts in documenting indigenous rituals such as the Kahusayan Lidu. Next one, support from cultural and government institutions, so government agencies such as the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples and local cultural offices may provide support programs that promote the preservation and protection of indigenous rituals and traditions, specifically of the Talaandig tribe. And then for the community-based cultural preservation programs, the 7 tribes of Bukidnon, not only the community of the Talaandig tribe, may strengthen community-based initiatives that encourage younger members of the tribe to learn and appreciate their traditional rituals and cultural practices. Since in the community of the Talaandig tribe, they have already the School of the Living Tradition. Okay? Integration into educational curriculum, I have mentioned this already. Okay, next slide. Promotion of indigenous cultural awareness. So local government units and cultural organizations may organize and cultural exhibition forums and research conferences that highlight indigenous rituals and traditions. So I am very glad that PIDS initiate this activity wherein we have given another chance to disseminate the result of our study. For ethical and collaborative research practices, future researchers studying indigenous communities should ensure ethical research practice by collaborating closely with tribal leaders. So since we have implemented, especially here in our university, the REC, the Research Ethics Committee, wherein the quality of especially the indigenous studies is really implemented. So development of cultural preservation policies. So for the policy makers, should strengthen programs and policies that protect and promote indigenous rituals and cultural heritage. So such initiatives can help ensure that traditional practices such as the Kahusayan Lidu ritual are respected and preserved. So for the research contribution, this study contributes to the growing body of literature on indigenous knowledge systems by providing a detailed documentation and analysis of the Kahusayan Lidu, a peace ritual practiced by the Talaandig tribe in Lantapan, Bukidnon. So this research, therefore, fills an important gap in the documentation of indigenous cultural practices in Bukidnon. So this research also contributes on indigenous cultural preservation, cultural identity, and the significance of traditional rituals in sustaining social harmony. So it also provides valuable reference material for scholars, researchers, educators, and cultural institutions interested in the study of indigenous traditions and heritage in the Philippines. So these are the references used in the study. Salamat tungkay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singkulan, for sharing this important cultural perspective on indigenous peace traditions. We have highlighted 2 points from the study or from the presentation of Dr. Singkulan. The first one being, the study recommends compiling and documenting various tribal rituals to support the preservation and promotion of the cultures of different ethnic groups in the country. And the second one, the study suggests conducting further studies on other rituals practiced by the tribe to analyze additional customs and beliefs embedded within them. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Singkulan. We'd like to acknowledge our Facebook participants from the different parts of the country. Special shout out to our participants from Davao del Norte, Davao de Oro, Davao Occidental, Cabanatuan City, Maguindanao del Sur, and Antique. Leave a comment in our Facebook Live so we can acknowledge your organizations too. On to our fourth presentation. Our fourth presentation is titled Lost, Iraya Mangyan Culture and Identities Then. This study reflects on the historical experiences and evolving identities of the Iraya Mangyan community. Presenting this research is Professor Worley Bueno from Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Let us welcome Professor Bueno for her online presentation.
So good morning po everyone. I'm Worley Bueno, the Chief for Center for Social Sciences and Education Studies, formerly known as Center for Indigenous Peoples Studies, of the Research Institute for Human and Social Development of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. So on behalf of my co-authors, Ronel Loyola, Melka Monsora, Chloe Nicole Piamente, and Stanley Gulag. I'll be presenting our research paper entitled Lost Iraya Mangyan Culture and Identities There. This study explores how Iraya Mangyan elders remember and describe their cultural identity, traditions, and ways of life in the past, and how these cultural expressions have changed over time. Through their memories and experiences, we aim to understand how cultural traditions were practiced before and what factors contributed to their preservation or decline. So why is it important? This study is important because it gives Iraya Mangyan elders a platform to share their lived experiences, wisdom, and cultural memories. Elders are considered as the custodians of indigenous heritage, and their knowledge plays a crucial role in preserving cultural traditions. Second, the study contributes to the growing body of indigenous knowledge, research representing an ethnic or insider perspective on cultural identity, cultural change, and the transmission of traditions across generations. Finally, the research highlights how globalization, development, and modernization influence the continuity of erosion of indigenous cultural practices. Understanding these changes allows us to appreciate the importance of preserving indigenous cultural heritage. So what we want to know. This study aims to answer several key research questions. First, we wanted to understand how Iraya Mangyan elders describe their cultural identity and what role it plays in their daily lives and community practices. Second, we explored what cultural expressions existed during their youth, including festivals, performing arts, visual arts, food traditions, and traditional games, and what meanings these practices held for them. Third, we asked how these cultural expressions have changed over time, based on the recollections of the elders. Fourth, we examined the challenges elders face in passing cultural knowledge to the younger generations. Finally, we asked the elders what they believe can be done to preserve and revitalize Iraya Mangyan culture today. Overall, the study seeks to understand how Iraya Mangyan cultural identity has evolved across generations and what factors influence its preservation or decline. So from the different references we gathered, we were able to extract 4 important themes and use them for our review of related literature. So first, cultural expression serves as a vessels of identity, meaning that traditions such as rituals, crafts, and performances carry the values and beliefs of the community. Second, elders play a crucial role as custodians of cultural memory, preserving knowledge through storytelling, practices, and lived experiences. Third, cultural heritage preservation and transmission is an important concern, especially as fewer young people learn traditional practices. Finally, the elders highlighted the challenges of cultural continuity in the face of modernization, including technological influence, changing lifestyles, and external regulations affecting traditional livelihoods. So for the methodology, this study used a qualitative descriptive approach guided by indigenous research methodologies and narrative inquiry. Data were gathered through focus group discussions conducted in Iraya Mangyan communities in Occidental Mindoro. The participants were Iraya Mangyan elders aged 50 years old and above, who are recognized as knowledge bearers within their communities. Using purposive sampling, we selected around 10 to 20 elders who could share valuable insights about their cultural practices and traditions. This method allowed us to collect rich narratives and personal experiences about Iraya Mangyan culture. The focus group discussions serve as the primary method of gathering data. Through group discussions, elders were encouraged to share their memories, experiences, and reflections about traditional cultural practices. This method also allowed participants to build on each other's stories, creating deeper and more collective understanding of their shared cultural history. For the resulting discussion, so we were able to answer the questions, the sub-problems that were considered a while ago. So, cultural identity in everyday and communal life. One of the key findings of the study is that Iraya Mangyan cultural identity is deeply embedded in everyday life. Elders explained that cultural identity is not just an idea, but a way of living expressed through daily activities, social relationships, and community rituals. They shared traditional kinship, terms such as kina, kalo, soog, and abyan, which reflects complex systems of respect, kinship, and community relationship. The elders also emphasized the connection between culture, nature, and spirituality. Practices such as kaingin farming, forest foraging, and ritualized planting are not only agricultural activities but also spiritual practices that connect people to the land and their beliefs. For the cultural expressions and their embedded meanings, the elders also describe various cultural expressions that were practiced during their youth. Communal festivals were vibrant celebrations, often connected to the agricultural calendar and spiritual beliefs. Activities such as ritual cattle slaughter, food sharing, and ritual chants had both social and sacred purposes. Performing arts like evening storytelling and dramatic performances, as well as the use of bamboo instruments such as flauta and subing, were used to pass down myths, moral lessons, and historical narratives. Visual arts and crafts, including stone carving and traditional traps, reflected both artistic expression and practical survival skills. Even food traditions, such as the consumption of nami or wild yam, demonstrate the community's deep knowledge of the natural environment. However, the elders noted that many of these cultural practices have declined over time. Activities such as storytelling traditions, traditional games, and healing rituals are now practiced less frequently or are sometimes viewed as outdated. Some traditions remain, such as cooking wild yam, or practicing kaingin, but often in modified forms. These changes are influenced by several factors, including modernization, formal education, economic programs, and technological developments such as mobile phones. Government policies and environmental regulations have also affected traditional practices. For example, restrictions on certain hunting traps have limited traditional livelihood methods. These factors collectively contribute to the intergenerational cultural discontinuity. Challenges in knowledge transmission. Another major findings of the study is the challenge of passing cultural knowledge to younger generation. Many elders express concern that younger people are less interested in learning traditional practices. They cited technology, mobile phones, and online activities as distractions for traditional learning spaces such as the forest, the home, and community gatherings. Although elders are willing to teach, there are few institutional or community structures that support cultural learning. As a result, there is a growing gap between traditional knowledge and the younger generation's experiences. Revitalization strategies. Despite these challenges, the elders expressed a strong desire to revitalize and preserve their culture. They suggested several strategies. One is to teach cultural traditions to young people through schools and community programs. They also recommended organizing community workshops, storytelling sessions, and craft demonstrations to revive traditional practices. Another important idea is to recognize indigenous knowledge as equally valuable as formal education. By supporting elders in leading cultural preservation initiatives, cultural revitalization can be community-driven and sustainable. In conclusion, this study highlights the important role of cultural expressions in shaping and sustaining Iraya Mangyan identity. The recollections of elders show that identity is not simply a label, but a lived experience expressed through language, rituals, crafts, social relationships, and daily practices. However, many of these traditions are gradually declining due to modernization, government policies, formal education systems, and economic changes. This pressure often prioritizes external systems over indigenous knowledge and worldviews. So for our final reflection, ultimately, preserving Iraya Mangyan culture is not only about protecting the past. It is about sustaining a living heritage that continues to provide meaning, dignity, and direction for the community. By centering the voices of elders, this study emphasizes that cultural preservation should not be imposed from outside. Instead, it must be nurtured from within the community, guided by those who carry the knowledge and traditions. Before I conclude, so cultural practices, we also had a research actually almost similar to this, but our respondents for the other research is about younger generation. So, and from that research, we were able to see the cultural practices that the elders had enumerated and what is still practiced to this day, based from the younger generation's perspective. So, may mga checklist po naka-check po dyan. Yung mga may check po ay yung natitira or ito yung na-practice nila until this time. So, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Maraming salamat po.
Marinig.
And a box. All right, to continue, our final presentation for this session is titled Sustainability Practices and Community Resilience, Mapping Indigenous Wisdom for Urban Development Through the Lived Experiences of Iraya Mangyans. Presenting this research is Professor Diosdado Franco from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Let us all welcome Professor Franco for his online presentation.
Okay na ba ang audio ko? Okay po ba ang audio? Malinaw po? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a great opportunity to work with respectable institutions such as the Philippine Independent for Development Studies, and of course, the Socioeconomic Research Portal for the Philippines, and Bukidnon State University. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So, again, good morning to everyone. Our study is titled Sustainability Practices and Community Resilience, Mapping Indigenous Wisdom for Urban Development Through Lived Experiences of Iraya Mangyans. With me in this study are Sherin Diamboy, the former chairperson of the Department of History, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Ms. Annalisa Baldonado, administrative staff from the College of Social Sciences and Development, and of course, Mr. Ronel De Loyola from the Department of Philosophy and Humanities from the College of Arts and Literature. So, For the introduction, let me start. Cities around the world are increasingly challenged by climate change, environmental degradation, and rapid urbanization. These pressures have revealed the limitations of conventional urban planning approaches that often rely on technocratic and top-down models, focused mainly on infrastructure and technological solutions. Such approaches frequently overlook indigenous knowledge systems that have long guided sustainable living. Scholars such as Pickett Burks and Robin Wall Kimmerer emphasize that indigenous ecological knowledge reflects generations of lived experience and environmental stewardship. Yet its integration into modern sustainability and urban development frameworks remains limited. This study addresses this gap by examining the sustainability practices of the Iraya Mangyan community in Mindoro and exploring how their indigenous wisdom may inform urban sustainability frameworks, strengthen resilience, and encourage cross-cultural knowledge exchange. Using a qualitative and interpretive approach, the research conducted key informant interviews with members of the Iraya Mangyan community to document their lived experiences and ecological practices. Thematic analysis using a qualitative and interpretive approach, the research conducted key informant interviews with members of the Iraya Mangyan community to document their lived experiences and ecological practices. Thematic analysis revealed core sustainability principles such as environmental stewardship, collective governance, adaptive livelihood strategies, and intergenerational knowledge transmission. Based on these insights, the study recommends integrating indigenous knowledge into urban planning, fostering culturally sensitive partnerships, supporting indigenous-led livelihood innovations, and developing policy mechanisms that promote respectful knowledge exchange. In doing so, the research highlights how indigenous perspectives can contribute to more inclusive and resilient sustainability strategies. As you can see on your screen, this is the geographic map of Mindoro. On the northwest portion of this geographic map, you can see the place, no, Paluan, Mindoro, where we conducted our study. To understand the context of this research, it is important to introduce the community at the center, the Iraya Mangyan, one of the indigenous groups collectively known as the Mangyan peoples of Mindoro Island. The Iraya Mangyans primarily live in the northern part of Mindoro, particularly in Occidental Mindoro, where many communities inhabit upland and forested areas. Their livelihoods remain closely connected to the environment through small-scale farming, forest resource management, and strong community cooperation. This geographical setting is significant because the Iraya Mangyans' relationship with their upland forests has shaped sustainability practices grounded in environmental stewardship, responsible resource use, and collective decision-making. These lived experiences form the foundation of the indigenous knowledge explored in this study and offer insights that may inform broader discussions on sustainability and resilience. With this context, the study then examined how these practices are understood and experienced within the community. So in this slide, you can see the contrast between the urban development, and the indigenous knowledge being sidelined. Understanding the relevance of indigenous knowledge for urban sustainability requires contrasting urban development with the rural context of the Iraya Mangyan community. Urban environments are typically characterized by high population density, technological infrastructure, and planning approaches that emphasize efficiency and economic growth, often through top-down decision-making with limited community participation. In contrast, the Iraya Mangyans live in the forested uplands of Mindoro Island, where livelihoods and well-being depend on the health of the natural environment. Their communities practice reciprocity, collective decision-making, and responsible resource stewardship through traditions such as rotational farming, selective harvesting, and protection of sacred sites. This contrast, as you can see on your screen, highlights an important insight that while many cities struggle with environmental degradation and social fragmentation, indigenous communities like the Iraya Mangyans demonstrate sustainable practices that can inform more inclusive and resilient urban planning. While urban development often prioritizes efficiency, technology, and economic growth, it frequently overlooks knowledge systems that have sustained communities for generations. Indigenous groups such as the Iraya Mangyan possess place-based practices that promote environmental stewardship, social cohesion, and livelihood resilience. However, these knowledge systems remain underrepresented in urban planning and sustainability policy. There is limited research exploring how indigenous ecological practices can inform urban resilience and inclusive sustainability strategies. Addressing this gap requires documenting and analyzing indigenous sustainability practices and examining how their principles may inform urban development. By doing so, the study seeks to bridge indigenous knowledge with contemporary sustainability challenges and support more resilient and inclusive planning. The aim and the objectives of the study is building on the identified research gap. This study aims to examine the indigenous sustainability practices of the Iraya Mangan community and explore how this knowledge can inform urban sustainability frameworks, strengthen resilience, and support cross-cultural knowledge exchange. To achieve the same, the study pursued three objectives, namely, first, to systematically document the sustainability practice and resilience strategies of the Iraya Mangyan community. Second, to analyze the cultural significance and practical effectiveness of the Iraya Mangyan sustainability practices and strategies. And lastly, to explore and propose how the documented indigenous sustainability practices can be adapted and integrated in urban development contexts. These are some of the questions that we crafted from those objectives. Perhaps we can have one example. One of the questions we asked them, can you describe some of the traditional practices your community follows to manage natural resources such as water, land? May mga kaugalian ba ang komunidad ng Iraya Mangyan na sinusunod sa pangangalaga sa mga likas na yaman tulad ng tubig at kagubatan? So ito yung mga questions namin, no, na of course, no, we have to translate these questions in Tagalog. Okay. Here, you can see the methodology that we use. To address the research objectives, the study used a qualitative and interpretive approach rooted in ethnographic and phenomenological traditions. This method allowed us to explore the lived experiences of the Iraya Mangan community and understand their sustainability practices from their own perspectives. Data were gathered through key informant interviews using semi-structured questions that explored environmental stewardship, livelihood strategies, cultural continuity, and community governance. These interviews documented traditional practices, their significance, and their possible relevance to urban contexts. The data were analyzed using thematic analysis, which identified recurring patterns related to indigenous sustainability practices, collective governance, adaptive livelihoods, and knowledge transmission. By centering the voices and experiences of the Iraya Mangyans, the methodology supports respectful knowledge co-production and aligns with decolonial research principles. Through this process, the study generated 7 key themes that illuminate the principles of Iraya Mangyan sustainable practices. So these are the themes generated from the data. Let me enumerate. Environmental stewardship as ethical responsibility. Ito yung how they care for the forest, the water, and the land. And this is always guided by moral intergenerational obligations. Second, collective governance, and social cohesion. When they make decisions, it is always consensus-based. They shared labor, and of course, participatory dialogue is always present, and they foster trust and harmony. Third, adaptive livelihood strategies. They also diversify. Activities like farming, gathering, trading, enhance resilience against environmental and economic uncertainty. Fourth, cultural continuity and intergenerational knowledge transmission. They make sure to pass down the traditions and rituals, to the younger generation. Fifth, spiritual ecology and moral regulation of resource use. Respect for spirits and rituals guide ethical interactions with nature. Six, applicability of indigenous practices in urban context. This is the principles of reciprocity, community cooperation, and ethical resource use offer models for sustainable cities. And last, knowledge exchange and indigenous informed sustainability. Sharing of indigenous wisdom can support cross-cultural learning, education, and inclusive policymaking. These themes demonstrate that sustainability for the Iraya Mangyans is holistic, integrating ecological, social, cultural, and spiritual dimensions, rather than focusing solely on technical or economic solutions. Together, they form the foundation for the indigenous-informed urban sustainability model, which the study proposes as a guide for integrating these principles into urban planning and policy. So next, we will look at the indigenous-informed urban sustainability model, which visually represents how these themes can inform urban resilience and planning. Okay. So this is the conceptual model, indigenous-informed urban sustainability model. This slide presents this model from the study's findings. The model draws from the 7 identified themes and illustrates how the sustainability principles of the Iraya Mangyan can inform urban development. The components represent core indigenous practices, environmental stewardship, collective governance, and adaptive livelihoods rooted in cultural continuity and spiritual ecology. These practices support long-term social and ecological resilience. The model's outcomes that you can see at the top highlight the potential benefits of applying these principles in urban context, including stronger community cohesion, resilient livelihoods, responsible environmental management, and inclusive knowledge sharing. Overall, the model demonstrates that urban sustainability is not only about infrastructure and technology, but can also be strengthened by culturally grounded indigenous knowledge. Following this model, the study examined how these themes are reflected in the alignment of research objectives, interview questions, themes, and participant codes. So here you can see the objectives of the study, and then out of those objectives, the 5 questions we crafted. And then after that, the emerging themes from the interview, and of course, the verbatim quotes coming from the key informants. For example, the informant said, "We take only what is needed because the forest also needs to live for our children." So from this, we were able to find the emerging theme, environmental stewardship as ethical responsibility. And then another example is, we do not rely on one source of income. Farming, gathering, and trading help us survive. The theme that emerged from that statement is adaptive livelihood strategies. So this slide presents the alignment and illustrates how the study's objectives connect the interview questions, emerging themes, and participant voices from the Irayang Mangyan community. For each objective, interview questions were designed to elicit insights into sustainability practices. Questions on resource management revealed the theme environmental stewardship as ethical responsibility, reflected in statements such as I pointed out a while ago, this particular statement. We take only what is needed because the forest also needs to live for our children. Questions about economic well-being highlighted adaptive livelihood strategies, while those on governance and community challenges rebuild collective governance and social cohesion, with participants emphasizing the importance of shared decision-making. Participants also describe how knowledge is passed through observation, storytelling, and rituals, reinforcing cultural continuity. By presenting direct participant voices, the matrix shows that the themes are grounded in lived experience rather than abstract concepts. This matrix then leads to the next section, where these insights are linked to the study's key findings and recommendation. So these are the findings and the key findings and recommendations. You can see the some of the recommendations of the study. Okay. For example, in number one, this is integrating indigenous knowledge into urban planning. The recommendation is establish systematic documentation, for example, digital archives, community records, field observations of environmental practices to preserve knowledge and support future research. We're able to have 7 recommendations, no, for these 7 key findings. Next. From those key findings and recommendations, no, we were able to come up with policy implications for urban sustainability. Okay. Based from those findings, we highlight 3 key policy implications. First, integrate indigenous knowledge into urban planning, embedding ecological practices and ethical stewardship into city sustainability frameworks. Second, foster culturally sensitive partnerships, ensuring collaboration with indigenous communities is trust-based and respects their knowledge systems. Third, support indigenous-led livelihoods innovations, providing technical, financial, and institutional backing for community-driven sustainable enterprises. Together, these policies translate indigenous wisdom into actionable strategies that strengthen urban resilience, sustainability, and inclusive development. So, you can see on your screen the bridging knowledge, no, and sustainability practices. This infographic shows how the indigenous wisdom of the Iraya Mangyan can inform urban sustainability. On the left are core practices: ethical environmental stewardship, collective governance, adaptive livelihoods, cultural continuity, and spiritual ecology. These are all rooted in daily life and community values. The arrows illustrate the pathway to urban application, translating these principles into planning, policy, education, and resilience strategies that can foster inclusive, adaptive, and socially cohesive cities. For example, rotational gardening and resource sharing can guide urban green spaces. Participatory decision-making can enhance civic engagement, and indigenous-led livelihood practices offer models for resilient urban economies. This infographic emphasizes that indigenous knowledge is not merely to be observed, but serves as a living resource that can enrich and transform urban sustainability while respecting the community's cultural integrity. So you can see the contrast, indigenous practices and urban implications, but of course, these two can be actually related to each other. That is why the sentence there is sustainability at the center is sustainability is relational. Maraming salamat.
Please stay on Zoom. We will get back to you during the open forum. Before I read comments from our Facebook Live participants, I would like to acknowledge the representative of LGU Malay-Balay. We have Councilor Cromwell Kiril Dinlayan. A round of applause, please. Reading from the comments on Facebook Live, we have here from Mr. Bong Laurel, ancestral domains are not idle lands. They are the country's last ecological and economic frontiers. We must invest in the people who have protected them for centuries. Cultural preservation is important, but if we do not prioritize the physical health and wellness of indigenous peoples through a framework they actually trust, the culture itself risks vanishing along with the people. We invite our Facebook and Zoom participants to use the platform's feature to let us know your thoughts, just like how Mr. Bong Laurel did. Kindly use hashtag SERP-P Forum, that's SERP-P Forum, PIDS Forum, hashtag Indigenous Peoples, and hashtag Nation Building.
All right, thank you so much. We are now ready to answer questions from our on-site and online participants and even our media friends who are here with us today. For our guests here at the venue, please approach the microphones on the sides. All right?
And to ensure that we can accommodate more questions, we kindly request everyone to keep their questions brief and direct them to a specific presenter whenever possible. We would like to invite our speakers to be here on stage with us, Dr. Domingo, Professor Dinlayan, Dr. Singkulan, and of course we also have Bai Inatlawan, Honorable Adelina Tarino, the Chieftain and Baylan of Bukidnon Cultural Community, and of course our two speakers who are joining with us online, Professor Bueno and Professor Franco. While we are setting up, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our media friends. We have Mr. Mark Micabalo from DXMB RMN. Thank you very much, sir. We have Rusty Marie Codino from XFM. We also have Melchor Madera from Central Mindanao Newswatch. Pipito Artianza from Net25 TV. We also have Geneva Rivas from Bombo Radio. Mr. Armando Binabaye from DXIQ, Joanna Cabigas, DXNL Wanda Radio. We also have Mel Velez, CNN Philippines and Inquirer. We also have Ruby Balistoy, Philippine Information Agency, and Bernadette Epan from Philippine Information Agency. Just to let everyone know, our research from BukSU and PUP complied with appropriate permits. So now let us begin the open forum. So again, for the information of everybody, our microphones are located at both sides of our hall. And please state your name, your course if you are students, and if you are our participant, please state your organization for recognition.
Okay. Just to let everyone know that our research from BukSU and PUP, they complied with appropriate permits. So let us now begin the open forum. All right, once again, good morning. We are now in our open forum. So we would like to accommodate questions coming from our on-site participants. All right, we have one question coming from Dr. Riza Consad. Kindly introduce yourself, ma'am, and then what organization are you coming from?
Thank you very much to our presenters. You all presented interesting knowledge today. I have two questions directed to two presenters. The first one is to Dr. Domingo, sir. And my first question is, I'm interested with your perspective, and I wonder if construction of agritourism resorts in ancestral domains are permissible or appropriate in your proposed or your current policy framework in protecting ancestral lands. And for Ma'am Loretta Sol, I'd like to know also how your framework provide or facilitate reconciliation or resolution, perchance the decisions of the Council of Elders and the Board of Directors conflict. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Riza. Can we now ask for the answer of Dr. Sonny first?
All right, thank you. Well, excellent question. Probably in answering that, we need to address the two major legislations involved, no? IPRA, in this case, in my presentation, NIPAS and E-NIPAS. Within IPRA, any activity, any development project that enters an ancestral domain has to go through your IP communities in terms of vetting. And that requires FPIC. Well, for those awarded CATIS, CAUTIS. For NIPAS and E-NIPAS, there is this provision that is actually a strength as well as a weakness. Within this umbrella legislation is a provision that requires the government or the bureaucracy to respect existing tenurial arrangements. And that's why in some protected areas you see mineral extraction activities. And that's worse than what you have mentioned, tourism-related programs or projects. So there is that provision requiring us to actually respect tenurial arrangements, existing tenurial arrangements prior to passing of this legislation. So in the end, I think such projects are acceptable in certain dimensions because they allow for sustainable financing of development-related work or activities within ancestral domains. No? May they be protected areas or not. So I guess there are different sides to that argument. So it's allowed via existing tenurial arrangements. It's allowed if our IP community allows it. And definitely what we need to ensure are safeguards, no? In terms of us allowing such entries of development engagements. So yun lang po, kailangan lang po ng safeguards, but in existing policy related landscape that we have right now, both baseline and functional policies, they are allowed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sonny and Dr. Riza, for your question. This is now the time for Professor Dinlayan to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Riza. What is beautiful about indigenous communities, they have an embedded indigenous justice system. So if there are conflicts within the community, there is that indigenous, a part of the indigenous political system is the conflict resolution of Husay. So the cooperative, the Buktamako, is obedient to the policy of the government. And if there are conflicts within, especially among the board of directors, for example, they will apply the method of indigenous justice. They call that as consensus. So they will never stop discussing the problem or the conflict until it is resolved. So I think that's that's one good factor among indigenous communities. So the framework that we are also using is we are not detaching ourselves from the characteristic of the cooperatives based on the RA. So we have the 4 pillars and we consider that. And yes, based on the study, what we discover is there is a need to integrate another pillar, and that is the customary practice. But with the experiences of the Buktamako, so far, the Council of Elders are, they have their own way of discussing problem. I cannot go into the details, but one of the member of the Council of Elders is here. And of course, I mentioned there a while ago during the presentation that one challenge is the conflict, but the conflict is not relational. The conflict is the overlapping of land utilization. Thank you very much, Dr. Risa, for the question.
Thank you very much, Professor Dinlayan and Dr. Sonny. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Riza Conso. We have several questions from our Zoom platform. The first question is directed to Dr. Sonny. Dr. Sonny, this is from Normel of the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines. Indigenous groups argue that the E-NIPAS laws are rooted in the Regalian Doctrine, which assumes that all land belongs to the state, even in areas already recognized as ancestral domain. How do you respond to concerns that protected area rules may overlap with ancestral lands and unintentionally criminalize traditional practices such as Sweden farming, subsistence hunting, and gathering of forest products?
Thanks again for that question. I think that's a very important question to address, and it has been addressed in so many forums upon passing of IPRA before, because definitely via our constitution, the state owns everything, and it applies to everything, including, for example, mining operations where, our operators are just given the privilege to extract minerals. No? In the case of IPRA, it's actually the same. You are giving our IPs, our IP communities, full stewardship of ancestral domains. But the ownership part, as articulated in a provision within IPRA, is something that's, that has been clarified. No? But it doesn't in any way impedes our IPs and IP communities in terms of having that full control, full stewardship of ancestral domains. The only concern in some areas is the lag between applications in terms of the awarding of supposed CATIs and CALTIs. No? Doon po pumapasok yung ating concern. But ownership or stewardship, that's a debate that has been actually done in so many avenues before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sonny. I believe we still have, before we proceed to our Zoom questions, we have several Zoom questions. Let's ask if there are questions from our on-site participants. Okay, we have here. I'm so sorry. We will get back to our participant from this side. We have from this side, please. Please state your name and your organization, please.
Sir, what are the key institutional challenges faced by the local government units and protected area management boards in implementing the E-NIPAS? Also, from the evaluation results, what policy reforms or improvements would you recommend to make protected area governance more inclusive of indigenous communities?
So the question relates to our LGUs and our IP communities in terms of supposed role and representation. Within E-NIPAS, no, we have quite an inclusive provision in terms of the composition of our PAMBs, no, our protected area management boards. And it's actually probably too inclusive that in some cases we have more than 80 members. So just imagine the logistical requirement needed when you try to set meetings, no, for these PAMBs. The LGUs play a very important role because, number one, they are the frontliners, and definitely they have autonomy, supposedly, via our legislative law. And they are, well, an integral part of the PAMBs, no, in terms of decision-making and operations. Some cases, they co-chair PAMBs as well. Their role and importance really are not questioned. It's probably the concern that we have right now is how strong the voices are in terms of those PAMB meetings. No? Having 80 plus members and having, for example, less endowed speech-wise, no, or communication skill-wise members probably constrains an inclusive debate within those meetings. So in many cases, the more authoritative voices, no, including our supposed local politicians Even our executives in government, they have, well, the louder voices, and they are heard more. You know, compared, for example, to our lesser representations, including possibly in some cases our IP representatives. So yun lang po. In terms of inclusivity, we have tried to address that. Having provisions embedded within policy is different from us implementing a very inclusive environment for contributions from our different members as represented. So yun lang po siguro yung key answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sani. We would like to move to the next question. Yes, we still have an on-site question. We would like to accommodate one question. Yes, sir.
Sir, good morning. I'm Adrian Loncido from the Economics Department of this university. My question will center in your framework you showed earlier. No? There are several outcomes shared here: improve compliance, enhance capacity for protected area management, improve biodiversity indicators. I am curious, sir, whether PIDS or any government institutions have come up with metrics on how these outcomes are measured, because I understand from 17 PAs, there are 97 additional, a total of 111. So I think around 500+% increase in our protected areas. Second question, sir, is perhaps is there a, whether or not we can see example satellite imaging with respect to improvements of this protected area, whether it has been improved or some parts of these protected areas have been degrading over a period of time. And my second last question, sir, is with respect to the role of economic system payments, maybe for our students who are having a degree in Bachelor of Arts in Economics, maybe you can say something about this, sir. Thank you.
Again, thanks for that question. So you have three items needing clarification. Number one refers to metrics. The second, the use of technology, including satellite imaging. The third relates to funding, probably, or in this case, maybe more applicable, PES, Payment for Ecosystem Services. So just to answer the last one, PES probably applies very well in our supposed ancestral domains and protected areas. It's, I think, a very innovative way for us to gain sustained funding for development-related activities within these critical areas. No? May they be ancestral domains or are legislated or proclaimed protected areas. You are correct. The transition between NIPAS and E-NIPAS resulted to so many legislated protected areas. And that's a positive in terms of development, right? But we need to have more. There are so many other protected areas needing legislation. And therefore, the eventual legislative protection or legal protection within these critical landscapes. The second question relates to the use of technology, satellite imaging. I think we have been using that. The ANR has been using that in terms of also monitoring what's been happening in our forest areas. You know? Part of the estimates regarding the denuded lands and our forested lands, I think, require such imaging. The first one, relating to metrics, is something that we probably require more intervention. Because in doing this study, for example, we've asked all our stakeholders for data sets, and that refers to the metrics that we use for indicators. And we have probably suboptimal situations relating to this. No? We haven't been monitoring and documenting metrics that are applicable in terms of us protecting the natural landscape as well as biodiversity in our protected areas. So, ayan, I think BukSU and other state colleges and universities and other private educational institutions can contribute via this entry point for intervention. No? I know that DOST, for one, in terms of their key biodiversity areas, they have been monitoring certain indicators or metrics, no, in terms of how we look at progression or deterioration within the sites. But it's different if you're asking right now the national government as well as subnational entities, no, for comprehensive data sets relating to this. So we need to do more. That probably is the answer. But that's a very important question that we need to address. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sonny. The next question that we will be asking our panel members this morning is directed to all of them, no? Because we would also like to hear, gusto naming marinig ang voices ng others, all right, other speakers. So the question goes like this: how can development interventions be carried out in ways that strengthen indigenous peoples' well-being without identity and ways of life? In Tagalog, paano po ba maisasagawa ang mga intervention sa pag-unlad sa paraang pinatitibay ang kapakanan ng mga katutubo nang hindi pinapawi, pinapalitan o pinatatahimik ang kanilang kultura, pagkakakilanlan at mga paraan ng pamumuhay? So this will also be answered by Professor Bueno and Professor Franco online. All right, so let us start with Dr. Singkulan.
Okay, so I would like to emphasize specifically in the integration of the IP culture in the curriculum. Why? Because as what I have observed, since I am teaching IS 101, Bukidnon Cultural Studies, and IS 102, Wika Kultura sa Mapayapang Lipunan, my students are not really conscious or aware, especially members of the, coming from indigenous people, they even don't know how to speak the language. If I ask them if they are member of the indigenous people, they answer that yes, but they don't know how to speak the language. So I usually ask them, why? Bakit hindi nyo alam gamitin ang wika, no? The binukid for the Talaandig, Bukidnon tribe, and the Higaonon tribe, and the Minanovo language for the Manovo, Matigsalog, Tigwahanon, and Umayamnon. So the reason is they don't use the language at home. So meaning, sa loob ng tahanan, hindi ginagamit ang wika, the Binukid and the Minanovo. So that's the reason why the children don't know how to speak the language. And if I ask them about their culture, especially that I am teaching more on the language, specifically in the cultural terms. So I usually ask them, like for example, when we discuss about ritual, like the panalawahig ritual. What is panalawahig ritual? So I usually ask this, address this, especially to my students who are members of the indigenous people, and they don't know what is panalawahig. So meaning, especially for the basic education. So I would like to suggest that in the basic education, IP culture must be strengthened and integrate in the curriculum. Since before, the literature is offered in college, no? The literature is offered in college, but since we have the senior high school, no, in the basic curriculum, so all of the literature subjects, included the Filipino subject, are already taught in the basic curriculum. So I think my suggestion is, especially for the basic education, the Department of Education, the IP curriculum must be strengthened and integrated in the basic education curriculum to be able to let our students really know and appreciate the beauty of their culture, especially the language.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Singkulan, for your answer. We will now give the time to Professor Bueno for her answer too.
Ayan, magandang araw po, no? Pareho po kami ni Ma'am kanina ng sagot. Integration po ng curriculum sa basic ed, ang IP subject.
Kasi based from our experience, no? Dun sa research namin sa Iraya, Mangyan, yung mga estudyante bumababa ng lugar nila para mag-aral, pumasok sa mga eskwelahan. Na kung minsan nakakalimutan na nila na Iraya pala sila. So, ang po doon, parang pumapasok daw, ayon sa mga matatanda, pumapasok daw lang ang mga bata para sa 4Ps at yung mga, kumbaga para malayo sa mga elders nila. Kaya yun din po yung isa sa mga challenges no, ng aming sa research sa research namin, yun po yung mga challenges na ibigay ng mga elders. Yung technology, tapos yung education, at kasi pagpasok po nila sa school, iba po kasi yung mga subjects. Wala po yung, may mother tongue, pero wala po yung indigenous culture and practices po talaga nila. Yun lang po. So integration.
Thank you so much, Professor Bueno, for your answer. We also have here Professor Franco for his answer.
Okay, so hindi naman kailangan magbago yung kahit na yung ating mga kapatid na katutubo based from our study ay talagang kailangan pakinggan yung mga boses nila. So that is why ito yung ginamit naming pamamaraan to be able to elicit the voices coming from them. What are the things that they can really contribute for example in urban planning strategies that we normally have in urban context. So ang pinakamahalaga po dito ay we can work with our mga kapatid na katutubong pamayanan. Mahalaga na yun yung makuha natin sa kanila yung mga prinsipyo those principles are very important so that those principles can really inspire whatever political whatever things that we need to do about urban sustainable development. Ayun pa.
Thank you very much, Dr. Franco, for your answer. Just like Dr. Franco said, we have to listen to the voices of our indigenous peoples. And following on that, or building on that, we will listen to Bayin at Lawan. But before we give the time to Bayin at Lawan, we would just like to reiterate, because we've been receiving comments on Facebook regarding the permits and coordination na ginawa daw po ng ating mga researchers. We'd like to reiterate that all research presented this morning have been coordinated with the NCIP and were coordinated with the local LGUs. So they really went to rigorous checks po and balances. Now we turn to Honorable Adelina Tarino, Bai Natlawan, who will provide the indigenous community perspective, highlighting how cultural practices and local leadership contribute to resilience and sustainable development. Bai Natlawan is the chieftain and baylan of Bukidnon Cultural Community. Bai, we have a question here. Ako basahon ang pangutana Bai sa Tagalog and then akong utruhon sa Cebuano. So in Tagalog, ano ang mga inisyatiba ng komunidad ng Daraghuyan sa pagpangalaga ng kanilang kultura at ancestral domain? In Cebuano, unsa ang mga inisyatiba sa komunidad sa Daraghuyan sa pagpanalipod sa ilang kultura o sa ilang ancestral domain?
Okay, mayong buntag sa tanan. Agi sa pagpangutana o giunsa namo ang Daraghuyan. Ako usa ka leader sa ancestral domain, isip kadti representative sa Mount Kitanglad. Gihimo namo ang pagtutok ngadto sa among mga ritualist, mga spiritual leader, kung unsa ang ilang pananaw. Wala namo sunda ang naseminaran, nakatraining, kundili espiritu ang among gitutukan. So, ang gitudlo sa espiritu nga pag-alima sa kalasangan o pag-alima sa katubigan, pag-alima sa kinabuhi, maugyod na among gisunod. So, karon ang Daraghuyan Ancestral Domain, Bukidnon Tribe, ang anaa diha sa Mount Kitanglad, mauna siya kanunay namong ginasunod ang nag-ingon nga kinahanglan ang gibilin sa katigulangan nga mga balaod sa tribo dili kalimtan. So ang gibilin sa katigulangan nga na sa amo mao ang ginganlan kagbatasan. Kanang kagbatasan nga balaod mao na siya ang balaod nun. Kanang ginganlan og batasan mao na siya ang balaod. Kanang ginganlan og batasanon, mauna siya ang ordinansa sa tribo nga among ginasunod. O kanang ginaingon nga binatasan, mauna siya ang palisiya. So kung kana nga mga gibilin sa katigulangan, busa gitawag ancestral domain. Kay yutang kabilin og ang mga balaod. Nga anaa diha nabutang maugyod na siya nga among gialimahan, isip sumusunod sa yutang kabilin, isip sumusunod sa kahibalo sa among katigulangan. Mauna nga ako tutukan, wala sa dipid, wala sa eskwelahan, pero anaa nabasa sa mga bituon bulan ug adlaw, naa nabasa sa dagan sa hangin, naa nabasa sa tingog sa kalasangan o tingog sa kabukiran, nga madungga nato hangin raman, pero nganong mabasa man ngadto sa katigulangan. Ug among nasunod, ang pagbasa sa bituon, hantod karon among nakitaan nga tinuod gayod. Dili gyud siya mahimong bakak, ug pagbasa usab sa tubig, nga kung makit-an ang dagan sa tubig ug mabasa, mahibaw-an nga tingbaha na. Mulayo na gyud sa tubig kay tingbaha na. Ug mabasa usab namo diya sa gabon, nga ang gabon nagpaila, nga mauna siya ang muabot nga panahon, dili mi magbiyahe kay naay bagyo. Pero pagkakaroon nga panahon, tungod kay kung naanay ticket, unya nakit-an namo sa gabon nga naagi bagyo, magritual na lang mi. Istoryahon namo ang gadala sa bagyo nga karon mo lakaw ko, gapananghid ko sa imo nga kinahanglan ayaw banggai ang akong gisakyan. Tungod sa ritual nga ginganlan pamugsa, ritual, dako kaayo siya nga katuuhan, kay bisan unsa kadako nga katalagman magdahan-dahan pag-abot. Kay mutahod pod tungod sa gibilin sa katigulangan nga tahuron gayod. Taas naman ang akong gipamulong, so dinhin na lang ko taman, ug maayong buntag.
Daghang salamat, Bai. Thank you very much. And for the interest of our Tagalog listeners, we have here Professor Liza B. Yambagon from the Language and Letters Department to translate the answers of Bai in Atlawan.
Okay, hindi ko man siguro may bigay lahat salita por salita na sinabi ni Bae, pero gusto ko lang ipaalam sa lahat ano yung mensahe na nais niyang ipabot sa atin. Nais ipabot ni Bae Inatlawan na sa kanilang pangangalaga sa daraghuyan, malaki ang naiambag nila sa komunidad sa pamamagitan ng pangangalaga ng daraghuyan, ng ating mga kagubatan, ng ating mga lupain, ng ating mga, kumbaga, sa tubig natin, sa lahat ng aspeto ng ating environment, pinapangalagaan nila sa pamamagitan ng pagtuturo sa kanilang mga kabataan at sa kanilang mga kasamahan kung paano ito pangangalagaan. Sinabi kanina ni Bae Inatlawan na wala ito sa libro ng DepEd, wala ito sa aklat ng ninuman, yung paano nila nalalaman na uulan na, ngunit ang nakakatulong sa kanila sa pamamagitan ng kanilang natutunan sa kanilang mga kanunuan, na sa pamamagitan ng ihip ng hangin, alam nila na may mga pangyayaring magaganap, na sa pamamagitan ng pagtingin sa mga ulap, alam nila kailan sila tatanim at kailan uulan. Alam nila na malapit na ang baha sa pamamagitan ng pagtingin sa mga ilog, sa daloy ng tubig sa ilog, kung kaya't pinapaalalahan nila ang kanilang mga kasamang katutubo na aalis na sila malapit sa tubig dahil lalaki ang baha. Alam nila kung may magkakasakit, kung papaano ito gagamutin, at sa pamamagitan upang medyo maprotektahan ang kalikasan, nagkakaroon sila ng mga ritual tungkol dito. May samut-saring ritual silang ginagawa, may ritual sila para sa tubig. Ibig sabihin, inaano nila yung mga, tinatawag kasi namin yan dito na tigbaya, yung tagabantay ng tubig. Yung espiritong tagabantay sa tubig, sa lupain, sa hangin. Meron lahat yan, may naka-in-charge na dyan. Kung kaya't nagbibigay sila ng ritual para sa mga espiritong ito, or tagabantay na ito, para protektahan sila. At kahit papaano, hindi mangyayari yung inaasahang kalamidad. Kung mangyayari man, nagiging nasa mabuting kalagayan ang mga katutubo, naiiwasan ang anumang mga pangyayari na hindi maganda dahil dito. So sabi niya kanina, hindi yan itinuturo sa paaralan, pero alam namin. Wala yan nakalagay sa aklat ang ano ang dapat namin gawin, pero alam yan namin dahil nakuha namin yan sa aming mga ninuno dati, kung papaano ba ang dapat gawin namin sa panahon na ganito. Kung may magkakasakit, kung may kalamidad na darating, sa ihip ng hangin, alam na nila na, hindi maganda ang mga, siguro may mga kalamidad na darating. Kasi dito papunta ang hangin o kaya kung doon, alam nila yan. Yung sa mga ulap natin, kung titignan nila, alam na, ito ngayon ay mabuting panahon na para magtanim kami kasi maganda ang takbo ng panahon. Yung kaulapan natin, yung mga bituin, alam nila yan na merong ibig sabihin yan. At base sa kanilang eksperyensya ay tumutugma naman ang lahat ng kanilang ginagawa. So yun lang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Professor Liza Yambagon, for your translation. All right, Maybe Professor Dinlayan would like to add something from the insights of Bae Inatlawan.
Bai mentioned about she has many invitations. So every time she received invitations, that's why he said, kung naan ay ticket, plane ticket for example, ang yang bot pasabot, ang ibig niyang sabihin. And then according to the readings, hindi maganda yung panahon. Yung ginawa ng community, because Bai cannot refuse the travel, for example, it's very important. So they will conduct ritual according to Bai, just to request nga, kung pwede, hindi, the word she used, kung pwede, hindi babanggain yung sasakyan niya. So that's a very beautiful part of the indigenous knowledge. And then Bai also mentioned about the batasan, tagbatasan, binatasan. Alang ko, hali ko agkatumbok. Including the natural nabi ni Bai, are descriptions of the natural law. Since they are natural law, very familiar to the indigenous community. It's a very beautiful basis of.
So much, Professor Dinlayan. We'll now move on to questions coming from our online participants.
So before we go back to our on-site participants, I've been seeing a lot of hands lately. So this is for BukSU and PUP speakers. So we have, this is for Professor Dinlayan, Dr. Singkulan, Professor Bueno, and Dr. Franco. Or any of them can answer this. The question is from Feli Baday of PNV-SCA. So in your work, have you seen ways in which indigenous communities practice volunteerism as part of their cultural traditions? What stands out to you from these observations? I would like to repeat the question. In your work, have you seen ways in which indigenous communities practice volunteerism as part of their cultural traditions? What stands out to you from these? First, Professor, I think your microphone is on mute.
Hello po. Siguro isa po yun sa limitations dun sa study namin. We were not able to stay there for long. Kaya puro sa FGDs lang po kami, as in talagang 2 days lang po yung focus group discussion namin. At sila po yung pumunta sa isang lugar para makipag-usap sa amin. Pero pagdating naman po dun sa bayanihan, di ba concept po ng bayanihan yung cooperation. So yung bayanihan naman po, makikita sa kanila na though elders sila, meron pa rin sila yung pare-pareho silang mga elders, meron silang paggalang doon si pinaka matanda sa kanila. So ginaguide po nila, tapos tinutulungan po nila na pumunta lang sa mga lugar, tapos makikita po na community, ano po talaga sila. They live in the same community, they act like community people. Ganun lang po, yung nakita namin yan.
Thank you very much, Professor Bueno. May we ask Dr. Franco?
Okay. Same thing with what Professor Bueno said. We actually heard from them telling us na for example, no, yung strong community relations nila, no, yung bayanihan, no, yun din yung binanggit nila, bayanihan, no. Kapag merong talagang pangangailangan yung isa sa kanila, ay talagang lahat sila, no, tumutulong. So, yun yung binanggit nila sa amin, no, during the interview, no, yung pagtutulungan palaging nandun. Ayun.
State University. Let's start with Dr. Singkulan, and then I believe Professor Sol Dinlayan will be the last one to answer to wrap everything up.
During the conduct of my study, I have immersed and visited the community of the Talaandig as part of their culture, and I know that this is also familiar to all of us, the concept of communal farming. No? This is very familiar to all of us, and we know that this is part of the culture of the indigenous people, the communal farming. So I did not forget what Dato Saway have said during our focus group discussion with regards to the concept of communal farming. What do you call that one? They have to think that the whole community will benefited from it. So, like for example, think that their family would benefited from it, but the whole community will benefited from what they have planted. So that is one of the most I really appreciate the part of the culture of the indigenous people. They don't think of themselves for the sake of their family, but they think of for the sake of the whole community. Thank you.
From an outsider, maybe we can say that that is voluntarism. But within the community, it's just a way of life. It is an expression of the way of life. Maybe for the outsider, we would say that's voluntarism. But within the community, that's their way of life. The setup of indigenous community is from different ages, children up to the elderlies. They have a corresponding role to play in the community. So all of them are there. Different roles and different contributions. Now sometimes, I have to be honest, I am confused because I have to act as an insider or outsider. That's why I cannot strike the right answer. But for that's a shared value. Everyone in the community would contribute something.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dinlayan, Professor Dinlayan. All right, maybe we have another answer coming from Professor Bueno. Ma'am?
Hello po ulit. Sorry po, nag-raise na po ako ng hand. No? Clarification lang po kasi marami pong nagtatanong tungkol dun sa permit namin sa FPIC, tapos sa informed consent. Siguro gagamitin ko na po itong platform na to, no, para sagutin po ang mga ito. Meron po kaming MOA with an NCIP at ang kasama po dun sa MOA na yon ay to expedite yung mga permits po namin para sa mga pagpunta sa Iraya, Mangyan, sa Mindoro. So, aside from that po, meron po kaming kausap na IP Mayor na pinakilala po ng co-faculty namin dito sa PUP na taga-ron din po. So kung meron pong yung mga Iraya po na naandito ngayon, pasensya na po kung hindi po namin kayo hindi po kayo nakasama dun sa research, and it would be actually good for you to join us, no po. So yun po, yung IP Mayor po, Indigenous Peoples Mayor, si Sir Ryan po. Nakalimutan ko na po yung apelyido. So, may informed consent po kami. Duman po kami sa ethics clearance. Dito po sa PUP, pero na-check naman po ng maayos yung mga instruments po namin. Ayun po. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat po.
So, thank you so much to our panel members for answering the questions thrown at you. Grabe, no? Thrown at you. Let's give them a big round of applause. So, bago po natin tapusin ang Q&A, natapos na talaga siya. We would like to invite our speakers for a photo opportunity. So, please stand. Speakers. Okay, sit down lang pala para makita yung iba sa likod. And
so we are going to take 2 photos. So one photo will be a photo with our speakers, and then the on-site speakers that we have here on stage will go down so that everybody will be captured in one frame. So the photographers will stay here on stage later for the second photo. So first photo will be the speakers. Should we move? Okay lang, okay. Thank you very much. May I invite our speakers to please join our audience. And to our audience, please stand up and then compress in the middle so that everybody will be captured in one frame. Compress po tayo. May we invite our students, our guests at the back to please move forward. May I request our ambassadors and ambassadress to please assist our audience. Okay, count po tayo. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Give your best smile. Okay, another. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, thank you very much.
all right, thank you so much. Thank you very much to our presenters, our media friends, and participants for that engaging exchange of ideas. Please don't go yet because we still have our closing remarks, all right? Now, to formally close this morning's session, we now call our speaker for the closing remarks, Engineer Manuel Muhi, President of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. He will not be able to join us today on site, but he sent us a video message. Now, may we direct your attention to the screen.
Before we listen to the closing remarks of Engineer Muhi, we would like to thank everyone who has been with us in this morning's session. Nabitin kayo sa ating question and answer kanina, you may actually join the second round this afternoon, no? Second round of our session this afternoon. So please don't forget to like and share our latest post on the PIDS Facebook page. The first 5 participants who can show proof will receive a special gift. So do we have participants here who have followed the PIDS Facebook page? Just show it to Sir Zeki here. Sir Zeki here, no? He will give you your rewards, your special gifts. Okay, we have, okay, 1 already. Okay, 2, 3 already. Okay, 4, last one. And 5. Okay, so thank you very much everyone for following. So that's a very interesting way to let our participants follow our Facebook page. No, we can actually use that in BukSU partner. No, we can ask our students to join our Facebook page because it's where our special announcements are posted. So once again, let's hear the closing remarks of Engineer Muhi. Please direct your attention to the screen.
All right, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our dear IP and LGU leaders. We have Attorney R.B. Lesis, Dato Bagani, our former IPMR of the province of Bukidnon. Atong pakpakan. By Inatlawan, of course, Honorable Adelina Tarino, the chieftain and baylan of Bukidnon Cultural Community. We have Mr. Virgilio Namok, Dato Balinao, one of the council of members of the Bukidnon-Tagoloanon community. We also have here, ganina, Attorney Alfredo Lagamon, the NCIP Commissioner for Western and Northern Mindanao. We have Ms. Aiso Montalvan, the President of Bukidnon Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am. We have Honorable Renato Sumbungan, Dato Makayuba, our Indigenous Peoples Mandatory Representative of Bukidnon, and of course, Engineer Cromwell Dinlayan, City Councilor of Malaybalay. And of course, our BukSU community, kaway-kaway sa screen. All right.
Yes, thank you very much. And please do engage with us in our Facebook page. Please don't forget to use the hashtags, hashtag PIDS Forum, hashtag SERP-P Forum, that's SERP, another P, and then Forum, and hashtag Nation Building. Please don't forget to like and subscribe the Facebook pages of PIDS and of course Bukidnon State University. They are also available in Twitter or X, and of course the Facebook channel or YouTube channels of these organizations. Please don't forget that. And of course, partner, our session this morning is very informative and it's very engaging to know the different particulars, especially on our indigenous peoples. Because of course, partner, as just like what our Zoom participant and Facebook participant said a while ago, they are our caretakers, no? They are the guardians of our frontiers.
That's why some of our faculty members a while ago would like to ask some questions. But if you haven't asked your questions directed to one of our speakers, you may still give your questions to our facilitators later on.
Yes. So once again, let's give a round of applause to our closing remarks speaker, Engineer Muhi.
Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. As the 12 SERP-P comes to an end, I would like to thank everyone who made this important event possible on behalf of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. First, I thank our important partners from the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, especially the SERP-P team, for their ongoing work to improve resource dissemination and evidence-based policymaking in the country. I also want to thank Bukidnon State University, our host institution, for its help and support in making this event a success. I thank the distinguished speakers, researchers, policymakers, and participants who shared their thoughts and took part in thoughtful discussions during the forum and the roundtable dialogue. Your work has helped our community understand better how important indigenous peoples are to building a nation, especially their leadership, knowledge system, and dedication to peace and sustainability. The talks today really drove home the point that inclusive development can only happen when a wide range of voices are heard, respected, and included in policy and practice. Congratulations to the organizing teams, technical staff, and everyone else who worked behind the scenes, from designing the program to handling logistics and live stream support. Your hard work has made this forum a useful place to share knowledge and experiences. We at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines strongly believe that research should go beyond what is written in journals and reports. It should help people make choices, motivate communities, and support the country's growth. This forum demonstrates commitment and aligns with PUP's goal, one that promotes knowledge, innovation, and inclusive development through strong partnerships with communities, researchers, and institutions. As we end today's program, I hope that the ideas shared here will continue to inspire people to act. Let's take what we've learned from this forum and turn it into useful policies, impactful research, and community-focused projects that will help not only our organizations, but also the people we serve. Maraming salamat po. Muli, magandang araw at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
PIDS, SERP-P, and BukSU on Facebook, Twitter, and X, and YouTube channels for more updates. Also, please feel free to visit our website for more information.
We also hope to have you again in our future events. You can join the PIDS webinars that will be on March 18 and 26. So please visit the PIDS webpage to learn the details of our upcoming events, and you can register.
Finally, we would like to thank our participants.
Discussions highlighted, especially the importance of integrating policy research, indigenous knowledge systems, and community leadership.
Based program. On behalf of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Polytechnic University of the sincere gratitude to our speakers, panelists, and participants for making this forum a meaningful and productive exchange of knowledge.
This has been Joanna Ruth Sario Paloma.
And this has been Shasur Lebanontolan, your hosts for the 12th Knowledge Sharing Forum. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Recording stopped. Recording stopped.